I didn't see it coming, but maybe that's on me. Maybe part of me did see it but refused to stare straight into the obvious until it reached across the table, took my hand, and whispered like a bomb. "Let's just be friends." Melissa said it so softly, so matter-of-fact. It was as if she was telling me we were out of milk. Not that our 3-year marriage had just flatlined. I should have felt something. Panic, grief, maybe anger. But all I felt was calm, like a ceiling fan slowly winding down. That final click before it stops turning. We were sitting in the kitchen, surrounded by the echoes of a life we thought we'd be living longer. Her untouched wine glass stood like a prop she forgot to use, while mine was already half empty. She'd been quiet all dinner, her fork stirring her salmon around like she was trying to reshape it into something easier to swallow. And then, the line, "Let's just be friends." It didn't sting like I expected. It didn't break me. It just released me. And something in me, something I hadn't let breathe in a long time, smiled. I set my wine down gently. I leaned back in my chair, eyes meeting hers. I made sure my voice was smooth, not cruel, not sarcastic, just honest. "Perfect," I said. "Your sister already calls me baby." And just like that, her world tilted. It started in her eyes, a flicker of confusion, like a bug that just smacked into a clean window. Then her face tightened. The corners of her mouth twitched like they weren't sure which emotion to run with. Disgust? Disbelief? Jealousy? I don't think she knew yet. "What?" she said, blinking like I was speaking Portuguese. I didn't move, didn't blink, just let the silence stretch and wrap around her throat. "You heard me." "Jake, what the hell does that mean?" I leaned forward slowly, resting my arms on the table, fingers laced. "It means while you were deciding to downgrade me to friend status, someone else was reminding me what it's like to feel wanted. Really wanted." Her mouth opened and shut twice before any sound came out. "You're lying." "Nope. That's disgusting. She's my sister." She wasn't thinking about that last Friday when she laid her head on my chest and whispered she wished I'd met her first. The color drained from Melissa's face. "Jake, are you trying to hurt me? Is that what this is? You just ended our marriage like it was a phone plan I couldn't afford anymore. So no, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just letting you know I won't be begging. You don't get to walk away thinking I'm going to sit around and mope while you figure yourself out. You're serious." As a heart attack, Melissa stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped across the tile with a shriek. "I don't believe you. You're bluffing." I smiled and tilted my head. "Ask Sabrina." Her name lingered in the air like perfume. Or poison, depending on who you asked. Melissa stared at me for a moment longer, like she could read the truth in my posture, in the confidence she hadn't seen in me in years. She used to look at me like this, studying, cautious, intrigued. And now she looked furious. "You're unbelievable." I shrugged. "You wanted the truth. You handed me your goodbye. I just returned the favor." She stormed out of the kitchen. I heard the bedroom door slam upstairs. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I let myself exhale without bracing for impact. The house was silent, but my heart wasn't racing anymore. My hands weren't shaking. The world had shifted under me, sure, but not in the way I feared. For the first time since I said, "I do," I felt like I had the upper hand. And damn, it felt good. It was a bar. Of course, it was a bar. Some rundown little hole in the wall off 8th and Magnolia, where the lights were too dim to hide the chipped paint and nobody cared if your drink order was more complicated than beer or whiskey. I was just there to unwind after another mindless 12-hour shift, slinging code for a client who thought UX design meant making the app logo bigger. The usual Thursday night stress detox. And then she walked in. Melissa, long legs and dark jeans. Black leather jacket like she owned the place before she even sat down. Her hair was pulled up into one of those messy buns that probably took 20 minutes to get accidentally perfect. She slid into the stool next to mine and ordered a gin and tonic, voice smooth, not a trace of nerves. She didn't even glance at me. But I noticed her. Hell, I noticed nothing else. I don't believe in love at first sight, but whatever that was, it hit hard enough to crack ribs. I must have been staring, because she eventually turned to me and raised one eyebrow. "You look like you're trying to remember where you know me from." I blinked. I was just thinking. If I don't say something now, I'll regret it for the next 10 years. She smirked. "That line usually comes with a cheesy pickup." "Usually," I said, "but I guess you're not usual." That was the start. We spent the next 3 hours talking like old friends who forgot they hadn't met yet. I learned she was finishing her master's in urban planning, that she hated olives but loved martinis, that she once got detention in 11th grade for organizing a walkout over cafeteria prices. 2 weeks later, we were inseparable. 2 months, and she was already crashing at my place most nights. The sex was electric, constant, not just quantity, but intensity, that kind of pull your soul out of your body energy. She liked being taken. She liked control. She liked to watch me want her, and God, I did. She had this way of kissing me like it was war and worship at the same time. She could make me forget deadlines, names, time itself. That first year, it was fire and laughter and food fights at 2 a.m. We made pasta in our underwear, binge-watched trash TV, slow danced in the living room to music coming from my phone speaker. We talked about the future. Marriage. Kids, maybe. Her favorite names were Elliot and June. Mine were Sam and B. We fought, sure. Everyone fights. But we always made up with hands and mouths and breathless apologies that ended in tangled sheets. I thought she was it. That kind of beautiful crazy that made life feel like a movie I wanted to stay stuck in forever. I proposed with a ring I couldn't really afford during a weekend trip to Asheville. She cried, said yes 3 times before she even looked at the ring. The wedding was small, classy, her style, not mine. But I didn't care. She walked down the aisle in that champagne dress, and I forgot my own damn name for a second. 3 years ago. Now I was sitting in the same house, same kitchen, across from a woman who just told me she wanted to be friends. A downgrade. A demotion. A thank you for your service handshake at the end of the war. And if I'm being honest, the crack started long before that night. It was little things at first. The kisses that got shorter. The way she started checking her phone during dinner. The way she stopped grabbing my hand under the table like she used to. I chalked it up to stress. She got a promotion at work, more responsibility. I wanted to believe she was just exhausted. Maybe we both were. Sex became scheduled. Routine. She used to devour me. Now she offered it like a chore she wanted to cross off her to-do list. There were signs. I remember one night. I came home early. She didn't hear me at first. She was in the bedroom, door cracked, sitting on the edge of the bed scrolling on her phone. She was smiling. A soft, quiet smile. Not a funny TikTok smile. A smile that said someone made her feel wanted. She never smiled like that at me anymore. But I said nothing. Because I didn't want to be that guy. Paranoid. Insecure. The one snooping through phones and asking where you were at 7:46 last Tuesday. So I let it fester. Let it rot in the corners of my chest. And she got colder. Not cruel, just indifferent. Emotionally anemic. Like she was rationing her affection. Her touches felt scripted. Her eyes drifted during conversations. She'd forget things I said, or worse, pretend she didn't hear them at all. One night, I reached for her in bed, and she sighed before saying, "I'm just not in the mood." Again. She rolled over. I stared at the ceiling, and something in me started to die. I started staying later at work. Volunteered for projects I hated. Anything to delay coming home to someone who treated me like a roommate. Or worse, a stranger. But here's the thing I never told her. I would have stayed. I would have fought for us if she gave me even half a reason to believe it was still there. Still worth it. Instead, she sat across from me, 3 years in, and told me she wanted to be friends. So I gave her a truth she wasn't ready for. About her sister. About the one person who looked at me the way Melissa used to. And in that moment, I didn't feel vindictive. I just felt free. The first time I really looked at Sabrina, and I mean looked, was the day her laughter cracked through my silence like sunlight in a dusty room. It was a rainy Sunday, 6 months before the "let's just be friends" conversation. Melissa had roped me into helping her sister move into her new apartment. Nothing extravagant, just a modest 2-bedroom on the west side of town. Sabrina was upgrading from a studio after landing a promotion at her marketing firm. I remember walking up the stairs with a box labeled "fragile" in faded Sharpie. She opened the door barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie and leggings. Her hair was a little wild, like she'd given up brushing it halfway through. Not quite the polished look I'd come to expect from the sister of the woman I married. She looked real. Living the minimalist dream, huh? I joked, nodding toward the sparse furniture. She grinned, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh, absolutely. All part of the plan. Get promoted, move out, live alone, panic at 3 a.m., cry over bills. You know, thriving." That was the first laugh. The kind of laugh that wasn't manufactured for social media. The kind that made you feel like you were in on a secret with her. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing more of her. Melissa invited her over constantly. Dinners, movie nights, the occasional backyard cookout when we still pretended to be a normal couple. Melissa would always end up disappearing for half the night, buried in work emails or calls with the team. Sabrina? She stayed. She'd help me chop onions, tease me about how I always put too much garlic in everything. We'd talk about the weirdest things, 90s cartoons, how ridiculous Instagram algorithms were, whether time was a circle or a straight line. She asked questions Melissa hadn't asked in years. What made you fall in love with design? Do you ever wish you'd taken a year off before college? Would you rather lose all your memories or forget everyone else? Those little conversations started to stick. I found myself looking forward to them. She wasn't trying to impress me. She never wore heels when she came over. She cursed too much and always drank from the wine bottle instead of a glass. But she noticed things. One night, I was cleaning up after dinner, Melissa upstairs glued to her laptop. Sabrina leaned against the kitchen counter, watching me dry a pan. You always clean up even when you didn't cook, she said. Habit, I replied. Grew up in a house where leaving dishes overnight was a mortal sin. She tilted her head, studying me. It's not just a habit. You take care of people. I didn't say anything, mostly because no one had said that to me in years, least of all my wife. As the months wore on, those moments became more frequent. There was the night she showed up unexpectedly with 2 pints of ice cream. Pistachio for her, salted caramel for me. Melissa was at a work dinner. We watched The Prestige on the couch, and she fell asleep halfway through with her head on my shoulder. I didn't move. And then there was the time Melissa bailed on our anniversary weekend. Some urgent deadline, she said. I spent the night alone on the deck, sipping whiskey under the string lights I hung myself. Sabrina showed up with pizza. No explanations, no fanfare. Just said, figured you didn't want to waste good leftovers on your own. We didn't talk much that night. Just ate and sat under the stars like 2 people who'd known each other in another life. And yet, despite all that, we never crossed the line. Not then, not even close. There was no cheating. No sex, no secret touches, but there was a pull, a quiet, dangerous tension that buzzed just under the skin. A tension neither of us acknowledged, but both of us fed, even if accidentally. The way she'd hold my gaze a beat too long. The way her fingers would brush mine when passing a drink. How her leg would press against mine on the couch and neither of us would move. I told myself it was innocent, that it was just proximity, just the comfort of being seen. But the truth? I started to crave her attention. I caught myself wondering how her mouth would taste. I thought about her laugh while lying next to my wife. And maybe the most damning part? I didn't feel guilty, because by then, Melissa had already emotionally clocked out. She treated me like wallpaper, something she noticed only when it peeled. So when Sabrina showed up, full of color and warmth and actual presence, how could I not start leaning in? Still, I held the line. Barely. Out of loyalty, or maybe fear. But every time we were alone, that unspoken question lingered in the air. What if Melissa never looked up from her phone again? What if I reached for Sabrina and didn't let go? What if we already crossed the line, not with our bodies, but with our hearts? She never said it out loud, but I saw it in her eyes. She was feeling it too, and that terrified me, because even though I was still married, I was beginning to realize something. I wasn't in love with my wife anymore. I was falling for her sister. It started with her eyes. Melissa used to meet my gaze without hesitation. She used to smile mid-sentence when I looked at her too long, like she felt seen, wanted. But over time, her eyes started to dart, to her phone, the floor, the window, anywhere but me. At first, I blamed work. She'd landed a promotion at her firm and was suddenly drowning in late-night calls and weekend strategy sessions. I wanted to be understanding, supportive. But support eventually started to feel like submission. Her new job wasn't just demanding her time, it was taking her soul. Or maybe that was just the excuse she gave. We stopped eating dinner together, stopped watching our shows. She started going to bed before me, or after, depending on whether she was out or on a call. I tried to bridge the distance. I planned a weekend away, just us, cabin, wine, no cell service. She said she had a presentation due. I offered to cook more, to help around the house. She said I was being clingy. I bought her flowers on a random Wednesday. She forgot them at the office. The real shift happened the night she left her phone face up on the kitchen counter. It lit up twice, once with a name I didn't recognize, and again with a heart emoji in the preview. Nothing explicit, nothing you could take to court, but enough to light a fuse in my gut. I didn't touch it, didn't snoop, didn't need to, because from that moment on, everything she said sounded rehearsed. Her laughs were just slightly off-pitch. Her touches, if they came at all, felt choreographed, like muscle memory without emotion. And then there were the gym nights. 3 times a week, religiously, but I never saw sweat on her clothes. Her shoes stayed suspiciously clean. And God help me, she started wearing perfume to the gym. I wasn't an idiot. I just didn't want to know. So I convinced myself it was paranoia, that I was the problem, that maybe I was needy. Maybe I had let myself go. Maybe I was asking for too much affection, presence, fucking acknowledgement. Then came the control. Suddenly, she was questioning everything I did. Why was I spending so much time in my office? Who was I texting? Why did I work late on Thursday? Projection. I see that now. But back then, it just felt like a trap I couldn't prove. The only place I still felt like myself was around Sabrina. Sabrina didn't treat me like a burden. She listened. Not the polite kind of listening where you nod every few seconds. Real listening. She remembered my deadlines. She asked about my project. She actually laughed at my jokes, and not in a patronizing way. Her presence made the air lighter, even when everything else felt like a weight pressing down on my ribs. One night, I mentioned I might take a solo trip, just a weekend away. Melissa scoffed. Who goes on a solo trip when they're married? I don't know. Someone who needs to breathe. Sounds like someone who wants to cheat. I blinked. That's a hell of a leap. She shrugged, like she hadn't just stabbed me with a sentence. You've just been distant. It's weird. Distant. The irony nearly made me choke. I bit back every retort, every buried resentment, and walked away. But that word clung to me, like her perfume on the gym clothes she never actually wore. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I saw how her smile got brighter when certain texts came in. How she always tilted her phone away. How she typed with one thumb like she was trying to hide everything. Her passwords had changed. Her routines were loose now. Gym nights became late meetings. Meetings became spontaneous overnight trips with the girls. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Because the betrayal wasn't about geography. It was about absence. About how she stopped choosing me. I remember coming home one evening to find Sabrina sitting on our front steps. She had a half-eaten takeout container in her lap and a bottle of wine next to her. Hey, she said. You look like hell. Thanks, I replied. I'm aiming for it. She didn't ask questions, just scooted over and handed me the bottle. We sat there, shoulder to shoulder, as the streetlights flickered on. I know something's wrong, she said quietly, and I'm not going to ask. But just don't carry it alone. That sentence almost undid me, because Melissa used to be the one who said that. Back when we were teammates, not opposing counsel. I turned to Sabrina. Why are you still here? What do you mean? You could just stop coming over. Stop caring. Take your sister's side, like most people would. She looked at me for a long moment. Then, maybe I already chose my side. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. But in that moment, the line between us blurred just a little more. And from that point on, I stopped trying to fix things with Melissa. I didn't have it in me anymore. Every effort felt like shouting into a canyon. All echo, no response. She didn't even notice I'd stopped trying, because she was too busy texting ghosts in the corner of the room. It was raining that night. Not the romantic kind either. Not the gentle pitter-patter on the window pane that makes you want to curl up with someone and share secrets. This was the kind of rain that made the world feel like it was trying to wash itself clean, hard, relentless, and loud enough to drown out thoughts you didn't want to think. Melissa had left hours earlier after one of our classic non-arguments. The kind that doesn't involve yelling or slammed doors, just weaponized silence and sarcastic half-smiles. She said she had a work thing, but I didn't bother asking what or with whom. Her lies had become so casual that calling them out felt like accusing a mirror of lying about your reflection. Sabrina texted me around 9:30. Still raining like hell. You up? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I was already 2 fingers deep into a bottle of scotch, the fireplace humming behind me, and the National playing low from my speakers. I didn't reply right away, but 10 minutes later, headlights crept up the driveway. She let herself in. She always did. No umbrella, hair soaked, hoodie clinging to her frame like a second skin. Her eyes found mine, and for a second neither of us said anything. Jesus, I muttered, tossing her a towel. She peeled off the hoodie, revealing a tank top underneath, thin, black, no bra. My throat tightened, not from the scotch. You didn't answer, so I took that as a yes, she said, toweling her hair. Or a maybe. Or a fuck it. You really should work on your boundaries. She shrugged, smirking. You don't scare me, Jake. And there it was again, the thing that always simmered between us. That quiet defiance. That unspoken understanding. We sat on the couch. Not close, but not far either. The air between us buzzed with unsaid things. She accepted a glass when I offered one, and for a while we just sat there, the clink of ice and rain on the windows our only soundtrack. She looked around the room, eyes lingering on the framed photo of Melissa and me on the bookshelf. You two used to be so obnoxiously in love, she said quietly. I didn't answer. I remember thinking you were too good for her. Like, right from the start. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it hurt. You're only saying that because you hated her boyfriend before me. I hated all her boyfriends, she said. But you were the first one who didn't treat her like a trophy. She stopped treating me like a person. Sabrina sipped slowly, eyes on the fire. So what are you going to do? Still figuring that out. Divorce? Eventually. She turned to me, and I could feel her stare like heat on my skin. You're allowed to want something better, Jake. You're allowed to be more than convenient. That word, convenient, gutted me. You know what the worst part is? I said, voice low. It's not the lies. It's not the distance. It's realizing she stopped seeing me. Like I became furniture. Familiar. Functional. But not alive. Sabrina didn't respond right away. Instead, she placed her glass down, leaned forward, elbows on her knees. You are very, very alive, she said. Her voice had dropped, a register lower, like it was no longer meant to be casual. I turned my head, met her gaze. And for a second, the room tilted. The air thickened. My pulse echoed in my ears. The fire crackled behind us, but the heat was all in the space between our knees. Sabrina, I said, more as a warning than a name. I know, she whispered. But she didn't move away. I didn't either. Her hand was on the couch now, inches from mine. Her knee barely brushed against mine. There was no touch. Not really. Just enough friction to feel the edge of what we were about to do. And then her fingers moved. Lightly, barely grazing the back of my hand. Not a grab. Not a plea. Just a question. I answered it. Our hands entwined, slow and deliberate. The kind of touch that says I know we shouldn't. The kind that burns more than a kiss. We didn't speak. Not even as I turned toward her, or as her breath caught in her throat. Her lips parted, not to talk, but to react to the sheer electricity between us. But then she pulled away. Not abruptly. Not out of rejection. Just gently. Like a balloon slowly rising before it slips through your fingers. She stood, rubbing her hands down her jeans. I should go, she said. I nodded. Yeah. Neither of us moved. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in all our moments together, I saw something close to fear in her eyes. Jake, if this ever happens, if we ever cross that line for real, there's no going back. I stood slowly, walked her to the door. The rain had softened now, but the night still felt soaked in tension. As she stepped outside, she turned back. Do you regret it? No, I said, but I'm scared as hell. She smiled, a bittersweet curve of the lips. Good. That means it matters. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her. The echo of our almost lingered longer than any goodbye. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding, hands still warm where hers had been. No sex. No kiss. But we'd crossed the line all the same. Emotionally, we'd both jumped. Now it was just a matter of how long we could pretend we hadn't landed. I didn't go looking for the truth. It came to me, casually, like a guest who didn't knock. It was a Tuesday, the kind that feels like an afterthought to the week. I came home from work early, not for any dramatic reason. I just couldn't focus. My mind kept slipping into memories of Sabrina's fingers brushing mine. The look in her eyes when she said, "There's no going back." The air in the house felt stale, thick with the ghosts of things unsaid. Melissa was in the shower when I walked in. I heard the water before I even put my keys down. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, face down, but unlocked. Probably forgot I was supposed to be at the office until 6. I didn't touch it at first, just stared. Then it lit up. James, Can't stop thinking about last night. Same time Friday. That was it. Nothing graphic. No nudes. No sexting. But those 13 words rearranged everything. My pulse slowed. Not sped up, slowed. Like my body had finally caught up to what my instincts had known for months. The confirmation didn't hurt. It just solidified. Like pouring concrete over a crack that had already split wide open. I picked up her phone and scrolled. No hesitation. No guilt. The texts went back weeks. Always vague, but intimate. Teasing, playful, full of innuendo. The kind of messages that don't need to say sex to reek of it. One, in particular, stuck with me. James, you taste better when you're nervous. My stomach turned, not from betrayal, but from how familiar it sounded. Melissa used to say that to me, when we were still us. I put the phone down before I threw it. Walked upstairs, calm, deliberate. She was still in the bathroom, steam curling out from under the door. I could hear her humming. I hated that it sounded like peace. Like she had the luxury of ease while dismantling the life we built. I didn't confront her. Not then. I went back downstairs, opened my laptop, and pulled up our shared bank account. A couple of charges I hadn't noticed before. A hotel I didn't recognize. A dinner reservation for two on a night I was at my sister's. Ride shares from random addresses. Uber receipts she deleted from her phone, but forgot to erase from the joint email. It all stacked. One brick of truth after another. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I didn't pace. Didn't punch a wall. Didn't scream or throw things like the movies taught us we should. I just sat there, silent, letting the numbness settle. It felt like clarity. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just decision. She came downstairs 20 minutes later, towel around her hair, wrapped in her robe. "You're home early," she said, surprised. "Yeah," I replied. "Slow day." She leaned in and kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch, but I didn't respond either. "Dinner plans?" she asked. "Not really." "Okay, I might head out for a bit. Stacy wants to get drinks." "Stacy?" "Of course." I just nodded. Let her lie to my face. She left 15 minutes later, phone glued to her hand. I watched her walk to her car like I didn't know she was driving to someone else's hands. When the door shut behind her, I didn't cry. I opened a notebook and started writing. Names, dates, screenshots, receipts. I wasn't going to fight to save the marriage. I was going to bury it with the dignity it no longer deserved. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I laid on the couch and stared at the ceiling, playing memories like film reels, but they felt like someone else's life. The honeymoon in Greece. The night we painted the spare bedroom, both of us high on wine and hope. That time she fell asleep on my chest during a thunderstorm and mumbled, "Don't ever let me go." I already had. Or maybe she slipped through before I realized I wasn't holding her anymore. The next day, I called my lawyer. Not to file papers, not yet, but to prepare, to understand. I wanted every step measured, calculated, controlled. She wanted out on her terms. I was going to give her what she wanted, but not the way she expected. The grieving part of me was gone, replaced by something sharper, smarter. She thought she had me playing defense, but I was done playing. "And Sabrina?" She texted the next evening. "You okay?" "Yeah." "Did something happen?" I hesitated. Then, I saw the messages. "It's real. It's him." A few seconds passed. "I'm sorry, Jake. Don't be. This just means I'm free to stop pretending." Another pause. "You deserve more than pretending." She was right. The version of me that stayed for the comfort, for the safety, for the history, he died in that moment. I wasn't broken. I was done. And from that place of done, I started laying the groundwork for my exit. Quietly, strategically, no grand blow-ups, no screaming matches, just silence. The kind that means you've already left, even if your body hasn't. I stopped chasing, stopped asking, stopped touching. I let her drift further into her affair, not realizing I was walking backward out the door she left open. Because the truth is, she didn't break my heart. She set it free. She thought she was in control. That's the part that stuck with me the most. Even after everything, the secrecy, the emotional neglect, the subtle unraveling of our life together, Melissa still wore this quiet arrogance. Like she had planned her escape so perfectly that I'd never know I'd been left until long after the door closed. But I had already opened my own. It was a Sunday morning, unusually bright. Sabrina hadn't come over in days. After that almost night on the couch, the near kiss that still sat in my bloodstream like smoke, we'd both taken a step back. Space. Time. Restraint. But that didn't mean the air was clear. Melissa stood at the kitchen island, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't watched her cheat on me in high definition with every message, every lie, every strategic omission. Her eyes moved slowly across her phone screen, thumb scrolling with robotic precision. I was across from her, hands wrapped around a coffee mug I hadn't tasted in 10 minutes. I had rehearsed what I was about to say, but in the end, it came out more natural than I expected. "I've been thinking," I said. She looked up. "Yeah, maybe we should stop pretending this is working." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we call it. Quit while we're still civil." She blinked, caught off guard. "Where is this coming from?" I took a slow breath. 3 years of trying, of shrinking myself down into someone small enough to survive you checking out of this marriage. She scoffed. "Wow, that's dramatic." "No," I said calmly. "What's dramatic is you sleeping with someone else and expecting me to keep pretending we're fine." There it was, the crack. A hairline fracture across her expression. "What the hell are you talking about?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even move. I saw the messages. I know about James. The hotel, the dinners, the late-night texts. You really thought you were being subtle? She opened her mouth to respond, but I kept going. "You made your decision. I'm just here to make sure we don't drag it out." Her mouth closed. Her eyes flickered. I watched it hit her, not just the exposure, but the shift. I wasn't broken. I wasn't begging. I was calm, detached, in control. And that's when I saw fear. Not of me. I'd never laid a hand on her. But fear of consequence. Fear of losing the illusion of power she'd wrapped around herself like armor. "So what?" she said, folding her arms. "You've been waiting to drop this? Hoping for some dramatic moment to make yourself feel better?" I smiled just slightly. "No, I dropped it the second I stopped caring." And then I leaned back in my chair and let the words I'd been saving roll off my tongue like a slow match across dry wood. "Perfect. Your sister already calls me baby." It hit like a hammer. Her body froze, just long enough for the silence to collapse between us, for her brain to catch up to the sentence. I could see it in her eyes, trying to rewind the conversation, play it again, make sure she heard it right. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." "That's not funny, Jake." "Who's laughing?" Her face drained of color. She stepped back from the island like the room tilted beneath her. "You're lying." "I'm not." You're saying you slept with Sabrina?" "No," I said. "I'm saying I could. I'm saying she looks at me like I matter. Like I'm still a man, not just some fixture in the house that pays bills and shuts up." "You're disgusting," she hissed, eyes sharp with betrayal. I tilted my head. "You sure that word belongs to me? You're seriously going to weaponize my sister? You want to hurt me that bad?" "No," I said. "I don't want to hurt you. I want you to understand you never had the upper hand. You weren't fooling anyone. And while you were chasing something new in the shadows, someone else was reminding me I still have value." The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was full, bursting with all the things neither of us could take back. She finally dropped into a chair, her hands trembling just enough for me to notice. "How long?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I let the question hang in the air, laced with jealousy she hadn't expected to feel. "I never touched her," I said. "Not the way you're picturing. But every time you left me to rot in this house alone." She showed up. She saw me. And you should be asking yourself why that matters. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She didn't need to. The whisper I dropped had turned the entire balance of our relationship upside down. This wasn't about revenge. It was about liberation. About looking someone in the eye and letting them know they don't get to rewrite the narrative. Melissa didn't speak another word that morning. She stood, left the kitchen, and I listened to her soft steps retreat upstairs, slower than usual, heavy with the weight of realization. And I sat there, the coffee cold in my mug, heart finally still. For the first time since everything began unraveling, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel like the abandoned one, or the one waiting for a piece of affection tossed like scraps to the floor. She walked out thinking she held the cards. But the whisper I gave her was a reminder. I was never playing the same game. Melissa didn't speak to me for 2 days. Not a word. Not a grunt. Not even the usual scoff or eye roll that had become her preferred form of punctuation. She floated through the house like a ghost, silent and brittle. But her eyes told the whole story. She was unraveling. Not because I'd said something cruel, but because I'd said something she hadn't prepared for. That's what really got her. For the first time in years, I'd blindsided her. And she hated that more than anything. On the third day, the detonation came. She burst into the kitchen mid-morning, eyes red-rimmed, hair knotted into something halfway between sleep and war. "You're disgusting," she said. I didn't flinch. "Morning to you too. You think this is some kind of game, Jake? You dropped that shit about my sister like you're proud of it?" I set my coffee down and looked at her evenly. "No, I said it because it was true. And because you needed to know you weren't the only one rewriting this marriage behind my back." "I didn't cheat," she snapped, voice rising. "Not really." I laughed, low, bitter. "You're seriously going to play semantics now? You've been emotionally checked out for a year. Texting some guy named James, booking hotel rooms, pretending girls' nights mean blowjobs in valet parking." She winced, but I kept going. "I let it slide for months. I gave you the benefit of every doubt I could find. And what did you do with it? You weaponized my silence." Melissa folded her arms, but I could see it. The twitch in her jaw, the tremble at the edge of her lip. She wasn't angry. She was exposed. "And Sabrina?" she said, quieter now. "Did she know what you were doing? Using her to get back at me?" That made me pause, because the answer wasn't simple. "I never used her," I said. "Sabrina was the one person who treated me like I mattered. She showed up. She listened. She gave me pieces of myself back that you'd been erasing for years." Her face cracked then. Just a flicker. "You always liked her," she whispered. I didn't deny it. "I didn't plan any of this, Melissa. I didn't go looking for a backup plan. You pushed me away, and I stayed longer than I should have. She just happened to be the one standing still when I couldn't anymore." She turned away, bracing herself on the counter. Her shoulders were trembling now. "You know what this does to the family, right?" she said, not looking at me. "You know what they'll say when they find out." "Oh, you mean your family?" I said, sharper than I meant to. "You mean the people who've never seen me as anything more than a temporary fixture in your perfect little plan? You think my parents won't hate you for this? I think they stopped giving a damn about us the second you stopped pretending you were in this for anything more than appearances." Silence again. Heavy. Loud. And then, the doorbell rang. Melissa's eyes darted to me. "Don't." I ignored her. When I opened the door, I wasn't surprised to see Sabrina standing there. She looked nervous, hands gripping the straps of her purse, lips pressed tight. "I need to talk to you," she said, voice quiet. Melissa stormed in behind me before I could respond. "Of course you're here. Of course you are." Sabrina blinked. "Mel, don't. Just don't." Melissa's voice cracked. "You think this is okay? That you and my husband playing footsie under the table is just fine? We never. You never what? Slept together? Kissed? Does it matter?" Sabrina looked at me, then back to her sister. "It matters to me." "Oh, how noble." I stepped between them. "Enough," I said. "This isn't going to turn into a screaming match in our living room." "You mean my living room?" Melissa snapped. "Or do you plan on handing her the keys too? That's rich, coming from someone who spent the past 6 months practicing her moans in Marriott suites." Sabrina flinched, but didn't leave. "I'm not here to fight," she said, finally. "I'm here to tell you that I've moved out of my apartment. I'm not going to be your secret weapon, Jake. And I'm not going to be your guilt trip, Melissa." Both of us fell silent. "I'm done choosing sides," she added. "You two figure out your wreckage. But I won't be part of it." She turned, walked out, and didn't look back. And that's when Melissa broke. Not loudly, not with a scream. Just sat on the floor. Quiet. Deflated. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered. "I know." We sat in silence for a long time. I didn't reach for her. I didn't comfort her. Because she wasn't mine anymore. That night, I packed a bag. Just essentials. Laptop, a few clothes, toothbrush. Left the keys on the counter. She didn't stop me. Didn't say goodbye. And I didn't look back. Because this wasn't a divorce filled with fire and betrayal. It was a quiet funeral for a love that died long ago. The first night alone felt like standing in an empty theater after the show ended. Quiet, still, every echo of past scenes clinging to the walls. I rented a month-to-month place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Bare walls, mismatched furniture, a fridge that groaned louder than it cooled. But it was mine. Mine in a way the old house hadn't felt in a long time. No lingering perfume in the air. No scattered bobby pins in the sink. No second toothbrush to remind me of shared lives falling apart. Just space. The kind that lets you breathe. The first week, I slept like the dead. 9, 10 hours a night. Not because I wasn't carrying pain, but because for the first time in forever, I didn't have to hold it under my skin like a secret. I could just feel it, let it pass through without needing to shrink it for someone else's comfort. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. Stopped wondering what Melissa was doing, or who she was doing it with. The bitterness didn't disappear, but it dulled, like a splinter finally worked loose. I took walks. Long, aimless walks down streets I hadn't paid attention to in years. I found this little park 3 blocks from the apartment, barely lit, the kind of place you'd miss unless you were looking for quiet. I went there every evening, sat on the same bench, watched people pass. Families, joggers, couples clinging to each other like they were terrified of becoming what I had been. It didn't make me sad. It made me feel awake. I also started cooking again. Not microwave meals or desperate leftovers. Real food. Pasta from scratch. Garlic roasted until it turned sweet. Meals eaten alone at a small table under a single bulb, but each bite a reminder. I still had appetite. Still had taste. I picked up sketching again. Designs. Abstracts. Faces I made up. I filled 2 notebooks in 3 weeks. Not because I was chasing purpose, but because it felt good to create something that didn't need to be justified. One morning, I opened my inbox and saw an email from Melissa. The subject was blank. Inside, just one line. I hope you're okay. I stared at it for a full minute, then archived it without replying. Because I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Sabrina. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. But a few hours later, she texted. I'm not calling to apologize. Just to say I miss talking to you. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't ready. Or maybe I didn't trust myself to be ready. There was still something raw there, some ember I hadn't figured out how to handle. But her words lingered. A few days passed. Then I saw her. Not planned. Not fate. Just life doing its strange shuffle. I was at the grocery store, halfway through the produce aisle, arguing silently with myself over avocados. I looked up and there she was, in jeans, sneakers, hair pulled back, cart half full of practical things. We locked eyes. Neither of us moved. She took the first step, a small one, almost cautious. Hey, she said soft. Hey, I thought you moved across the country or something, she added, trying for a smile. Just across town. She nodded. Looks good on you. The distance. Thanks. You too. There was a beat. A silence full of questions neither of us were sure how to ask in front of stacked cantaloupes. I didn't think I'd run into you, she said. Not yet, anyway. I didn't plan on it. Did you get my message? I did. She looked away then, biting her lip. I meant it, she said. I do miss you. Not just the moments. You. I should have said something easy. Something polite. Instead, I'm still untangling a lot. She nodded again, slower this time. Me too. We didn't talk long. Just a few more pleasantries. She said she was working remotely now. I said I'd started drawing again. And then we parted. No awkward hugs. No dramatic pauses. Just 2 people in transition. That night, she texted again. If you ever want to talk, no expectations. I'm here. This time, I responded. Maybe soon. I didn't know what soon meant. But it felt better than silence. Because the truth was, I did miss her. Not in a lustful, desperate way. Not even in a forbidden way. I missed the version of me that showed up around her. The me who laughed freely. The me who didn't feel like he was waiting for permission to matter. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a path forward. But I wasn't rushing it. Because this chapter wasn't about falling again. It was about standing. And for the first time in years, I was. It didn't start with a grand reunion. No candlelit dinner. No sweeping apology. Just a text. I'm grabbing coffee at Finch's on Saturday. If you're around. No pressure. No follow-up. Just an open door, cracked just wide enough for hope to slip through. I almost didn't go. Not because I didn't want to see her, but because I wasn't sure who I'd be when I did. The last time Sabrina and I shared air, we'd both been navigating a minefield of guilt, longing, and unspoken what-ifs. Time had softened the edges, but it hadn't answered every question. Still, Saturday came. And so did I. Finch's was halfway full. Quiet hum of espresso machines. Low jazz playing over the speakers. I spotted her at a corner table, laptop open, hair falling in loose waves, reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She looked up and smiled before I even reached her. Hey, she said, standing halfway, uncertain. I didn't hesitate. I hugged her. Not too long, not too tight, but enough for both of us to remember. Her body relaxed into mine just slightly, enough to say I missed this too. We sat. Coffee orders were made. Mine black. Hers some oat milk thing I didn't even try to understand. For the first few minutes, it was light, weather, work, random stuff we saw online. She mentioned her firm had given her a sabbatical, and she was using the time to reassess life. I raised an eyebrow. That's HR speak for burnout, right? She laughed. I prefer spiritual recalibration. Sounds more expensive. I smiled, but inside, I was watching her carefully. Not analyzing, observing. She looked more rested, less guarded. She wasn't covering herself in sarcasm or forced pep. She was just there. So, she said finally, fingers tapping the edge of her cup. You look good. I chuckled. You say that like you're surprised. I'm just saying, the last time I saw you, you were wearing pain like a jacket 2 sizes too small. I nodded, letting the truth of that settle. I was. And now I'm learning how to go out in the rain without it. She smiled soft. I like that. I looked at her. Really looked. Sabrina, I said carefully. I need to say something. Okay. I never meant to make you feel like a consolation prize. Her eyes flickered. She looked down, then back up. I know, she said quietly. But I think I needed to hear that. I was broken when I started falling for you. That doesn't mean my feelings weren't real. It just means they came out of something messy. And you deserved more than that. She reached across the table, hand resting near mine. You still mean something to me, she said. But I didn't come here expecting anything. I just missed us. Missed talking to someone who sees me. I see you, I said before I could stop it. She blinked. Not startled, just moved. And for a long time, neither of us spoke. Just sat there, our fingers nearly touching, breath synced in a rhythm that felt dangerously close to something sacred. Eventually, she pulled her hand back and took a breath. You want to go for a walk? I nodded. The park near the coffee shop had a winding trail around a small lake. It was one of those places that felt untouched by the city around it. Quiet, peaceful, immune to the noise of everything outside. We walked in silence at first, until she finally asked, what happened with Melissa after everything? She never reached out. Not really, I said. One email. No real closure. And you're okay with that? I am now. I don't need an apology from someone who still doesn't know what she broke. Sabrina nodded, understanding etched into her face. What about you? I asked. You said you moved out. Are you still close with her? She hesitated. No. We talk less and less. She thinks I betrayed her. And maybe I did. You didn't. She looked at me. It still hurts. Not because I want her back in my life, but because I hate what this did to everything around us. Our family's fractured. My mom's trying to play peacemaker. It's exhausting. You didn't choose this, I said. You just stopped pretending not to feel something real. She didn't respond. But the way her shoulder brushed mine as we walked said more than any reply could. By the time we looped back toward the trailhead, the sun had dipped below the trees. Golden hour bathed the world in soft light. She turned to me, stopping just shy of the parking lot. So what now? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know this. I don't want to pretend anymore. Not about how I feel. Not about what we were. She stepped closer. Jake, she said, voice steady. I'm not asking for a clean slate. I just want something honest. I met her gaze. Then let's start there. And this time, when she leaned in, it wasn't a question. It was an answer. Our lips met. No fireworks. No crashing music. Just warmth. Clarity. A promise whispered through skin. We pulled apart slowly, eyes still locked. I've wanted that for a long time, she murmured. Me too. We didn't say what we were now. We didn't need to. We were something true. Something unhidden. Something ours. It was a Thursday when Melissa reached out again. I remember the exact day not because it was particularly eventful. It wasn't. But because of how ordinary it felt until her name popped up on my screen like a ghost clawing back from the grave. Melissa. Hey, can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Not out of confusion. Not because I didn't know what to say. But because the person I used to be, the one who would have jumped at the chance to fix things, to salvage something from the wreckage, he wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was just me. The new me. The man who'd finally stopped begging to be chosen. I didn't respond right away. I went on with my day. Finished my design drafts. Took a walk through the park where Sabrina and I had first talked about starting over. I grabbed a coffee and sat under a tree with my sketch pad. I wasn't avoiding Melissa. I just didn't know her urgency anymore. When I did answer, it was simple. What do you want to talk about? She replied within minutes. Can we meet? Just for a bit. Please. Out of curiosity more than anything, I agreed. We met at a neutral spot, a cafe neither of us had frequented before. Public, safe, unmemorable. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, sunglasses perched on her head, picking at a pastry she clearly hadn't touched. She looked up when I approached, her face softening with something I couldn't place. Regret? Nostalgia? I didn't sit right away. Say what you need to say, Melissa. She blinked, taken aback. Can't I even say hello? You can't, I said, finally sitting. But I'm not here for pleasantries. She exhaled. Okay, fair. A pause stretched between us, and for the first time, she didn't look like the woman who used to command every room. She looked small. I messed up, she said. I said nothing. I thought I wanted something new, something exciting. And I got it, for a little while. James made me feel different, desired. I don't know, young again. Still, I said nothing. But it was empty. All of it. He's gone. I ended it months ago. That doesn't matter anymore, I said, my voice calm. You made your choice. She looked at me then, really looked. You've changed, she said. I had to. She nodded, eyes falling to the table. I think about what we had, how we used to be. I don't know when I lost you. You didn't lose me, Melissa, I replied. You stopped seeing me. That's different. She flinched, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She slid it across the table. What's this? A letter, she said. Everything I didn't know how to say before. I've been writing it for weeks. I didn't touch it. I'm not trying to fix anything, she added quickly. I just needed to say it. And maybe hear something back. For a long moment, I watched her. She wasn't lying. Not this time. But it was too late. And she knew it. Melissa, I said slowly. Do you remember what I said that morning? When you tried to break things off like it was your idea? She nodded, shame flickering in her eyes. You said, perfect. Your sister already calls me baby. And I meant it. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to argue. But she didn't. Sabrina didn't break us, I said. You did. All I did was stop bleeding for a relationship that had already flatlined. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't reach across the table. I didn't comfort her. This time, I let her feel it. Are you two together now? She asked, voice shaking. We're figuring it out. Honestly. Slowly. But yes, we're something. And I don't need your approval to let that grow. She nodded. One tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. I didn't expect to lose both of you, she whispered. You didn't lose us, I corrected gently. You pushed us away. You made space where something used to live. I regret it. I believe you. Another long pause. Then, she reached for her purse and stood. I'll go, she said. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded, and she turned to leave. But just before she reached the door, she hesitated, looked back at me with a vulnerability I hadn't seen in years. I really did love you, Jake. I know, I said. But you loved yourself more. She left. I didn't touch the letter. I left it on the table, untouched, like a symbol of the closure I didn't need anymore. That night, Sabrina came over. We sat on my balcony with drinks, legs tangled under a shared blanket. I told her what happened, every detail. She didn't react with jealousy or bitterness. She just leaned into me and said, Are you okay? And I realized that was what I had been missing for years. The simple act of someone choosing my feelings over their own discomfort. I'm more than okay, I said. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and rested her head on my shoulder. The tables had turned. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped playing a game that was never fair to begin with. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was truly, finally free.